Netflix had a show called Bet come out, inspired by the manga Kakegurui. They obviously wanted the recognition of the adaptation with none of the responsibilities. And this show is pretty much any version of the Netflix adaptation meme, like the one that you see on screen, where instead of even remotely trying to go to the source material, they just loosely take the concept, jam their agenda down its throat, and butcher everything about it. Now, this show has so many issues that I don't really want to harp on the casting too much. And honestly, I kind of just don't want to be mean to the actors because they're mostly just young kids, probably getting their first kind of major role in a Netflix show. The two castings that I actually thought were decent were the main girl who plays Yumeko. She's bubbly enough and looks similar enough that I think they could have made it work in a better show. I'm not going to blame her performance on her when the writing is straight ass. And I actually thought they did okay with Runa also. And one of the few clever things they do is because she's always wearing costume type hoodie things, is give her a shark outfit because she's a loan shark. But beyond that, they gave us Kurari here in the middle, and this was the anime version. Over here on the right, we get Midari, who is one of the most butchered characters in the show. This is Suki, and in the anime, this is a chick, and they actually call the guy he. No clue what the fucking thought process was here. Well, Netflix was the thought process. Mary was obviously race swapped. You can see the anime version here. And of course, Ryuta was also race swapped, which you can see here as well. Now, I don't particularly care. Like, you want to Americanize it, make it racially diverse, fine. But what they do to the characters is indescribable. The amount that they don't understand the appeal of the show is also kind of impressive. Then they add in a bunch of bullshit that's really poorly done on top of it. And frankly, there are some shows that should just never be adapted to begin with. To me, this is absolutely one of them. I like the original show. There is a Japanese Netflix live adaptation, which is okay. The problem trying to adapt a show like this is that a lot of stuff can get overlooked in an anime, or simply it just appeals to the anime kind of core audience, where you have this crazy over sexualization of everything, these hyper expressive faces that can't be replicated. And frankly, even if they could be replicated, they probably shouldn't be, because they would absolutely not translate to a normal audience for live action. So the show has a ton of problems. The biggest, I would say, is that it doesn't understand why the games appeal to people. And that was a massive part of the appeal to the show for me, and I imagine many people who watched it. A really cool part of the show is the kind of psychological aspect of all the gambling. Your main character, Yumeko, is just a pure gambler, like a gambling addict. That's what she loves. They don't really get into a deeper story. They kind of hint at it in the show. Maybe it happens later in the manga. There's mention of family and clan power struggles outside the school, but you don't really care about her as a person as much as how is she going to win each game, because every character is cheating almost at every game, or they have some kind of overwhelming advantage that she's able to overcome. So there's a lot of psychological manipulation there. There's a cleverness to figuring out how the cheat is happening. So I'm not going to go through all the games because I don't want to, but I want to give a couple examples. So the one I have on screen right now between this version of Suki and Yumeko is essentially just they try to dig up social media information about each other and embarrass each other, and whoever's heart rate gets higher above a certain threshold loses. Completely uninteresting, completely fucking dull, and not really a game as much as just bullshit, really. Like, logistics of how the game itself works completely aside, it's just kind of a nonsensical thing. The game of Yumeko versus Midari is fucking DDR, or Dance Dance Revolution, followed by a randomized duel that devolves into a fucking sword fight. Like, what? They do one called House Wars, which is like war, but also kind of like a physical fight. Again, completely backseating the gambling and not understanding the point. They have another one where they bet on who's going to be the gala, essentially king and queen, like prom type thing. And suddenly side betting is a thing. clearly people who made the show don't fucking understand gambling or gamblers. I'll come back to that in a minute. Then we get like a weird, almost Hunger Games type thing where they're trying to hunt each other and get gems, and there's a really physical component to it as well, and not much clever about it. And then the one time in episode 8 where they actually reference a game from the show, they completely misunderstand the point of why it was used in the show to make a gross scene and reaffirm Mary's will in gambling. Completely asinine. So just a quick explanation. In the show, the game they're playing is a finger trap guillotine. There's 20 strings and each person cuts one until someone blinks. Obviously, if you cut the string tied to the guillotine, it falls and whoever's fingers are in there will lose them. Really interesting psychological game. Super intense in the show. In the original show, the girl playing the game with Yumeko and Midari is cheating because she has a blocker in there, so she won't flinch no matter what. She knows that her finger's safe, but it's still a psychological test for the other person. But in the original show, Yumeko says to the neutral observer, "Did you remove that thing that I asked you to?" Which makes the host girl think that the part of it that blocks the guillotine has been taken out. So she's like actually playing the game for the first time and scared shitless and ends up pulling her finger out and losing. And the way that it ends is pretty crazy too, because you end with Midari and Yumeko leaving their fingers in the thing, but Midari cuts the last 2 strings at the same time, guaranteeing that it falls because her character is completely different. And Yumeko, it turns out, was asking the neutral person to get rid of the wobble in the table, but ends up winning the game. It's just super well done, super psychologically interesting, really clever, and this is just stupidity. And that kind of sums up the entire show. In episode 9, because they've made the whole show about Yumeko's revenge, she's all fucking around trying to poison a guy. And we get some really subtle class commentary from Netflix, which is exactly what you would expect, where the rich, corrupt people turn all the poor workers into a bunch of desperate hogs fighting over a wad of cash. I mean, I guess if you want to call it a game, you can. Not really a gambling type thing. They're betting on who's going to win. And the Netflix version for the finale is Kurari and Yumeko playing heads up blackjack while they're both poisoned because Yumeko is a fucking psycho in this show. And they're playing for the antidote. They managed to work it into a tie with Mary as the dealer so they can split the antidote and essentially both be in the show for a season 2 that I hope never comes. And this is the only one that's like kind of gambling and sort of interesting. But again, when you fuck the stakes up the way that they do, it really distorts how insane this all is. And the only card game they routinely play in the show is called Skirmish, which could be mildly interesting, but they don't get into any of the strategy. So it's just kind of people laying cards down and they say who the winner is. And I'm not going to go through all the anime games, but I want to at least contrast a couple so you understand how inferior the fucking show is if you don't already. So episode 1, they do the skirmish thing in the bet show, which again is a really lame game that they don't expound on the strategy that could be interesting. So what they do in episode 1 of the original is they play rock, paper, scissors, but with cards. And the way that it works is the 30 kids in the class draw a rock, paper, or scissors on a card. You each draw 3, and then you play a card heads up. So your odds could be really distorted. For instance, if every person put in rock and paper, and there's no scissors, and then you end up with all rock, you'd be screwed. So there's a lot of dynamics to it, and it's really interesting. The way that Mary cheats in the anime is that she told her house pets to all put rock. So she would know the odds in a certain direction, and then if she had rock or paper, she knows she's safe. So when Yumeko bets big, she plays the safe cards, and then she loses intentionally on the smaller bets, which Yumeko then figures out and obviously uses it to fuck her over. Way more going on there, way more interactive and cleverness and subtlety than just 7-card war, which is essentially what Skirmish is. And I'll just go through Suki's game real quick too, because even this game, which is simple, is much more fun to watch than the fucking social media battle that you get in Bet. So when she plays Suki, they play, I think it's called Memory, where essentially the cards are just spread randomly on the table, You flip over 2 cards. If they match, you take them. Whoever gets over half the deck wins. And they're playing with 2 decks. Because obviously, if you don't match them, you just flip them back face down, but now you know what they are, if you can remember them. Suki's parents own a toy company that's huge. All these kids are rich. And she has these special cards that have a marking that only she knows on each card for like 2 to 3 minutes based on heat. So she keeps hand warmers in her bag that obviously people wouldn't be aware of. Again, just a lot of subtlety going on, really specific. And even if you knew what they all were, putting them face down, to memorize all of them is still pretty impressive. And Yumeko doesn't like cheaters, so she's fucking relentless when she catches them and tries to essentially destroy them. And she loses a game, is pretending to freak out. Suki says that if Yumeko bets her nails, they can go double or nothing because she's psychotic. Again, in the show, everyone is. Bet doesn't really play with this the right way. So Yumeko goes first and literally just takes all of the cards on her first turn. Well, as soon as she gets over half, she's won. And then she's egging Suki on to play other games. Now that she's gotten her money back, she doesn't want to let up. And obviously Yumeko goes crazy and is like spitting and salivating and is like, come on, let's play more. You were okay to play for nails when it was my nails. Surely you won't back out now or I'll expose that you were cheating. Like, she's just an insane fucking gambler and a super fun character, and the games themselves are entertaining. I want to talk about the story as well, not just the games, because I feel like the characters in the story are just horrendous. So like I said, for the characters, Yumeko, they give this big revenge thing. She's going after essentially a lot of these kids' parents that she's in school with, but they make her crazy. Like at one point, she tries to blow a guy up based on essentially no evidence, just that he's in some photo. Without any proof, she tries to fucking kill him. And this happens repeatedly throughout the show, where she's trying to fucking kill people with little to no evidence, and she's your protagonist. And of course, the show isn't framing this as she's in the wrong. It's framing it kind of like, whoopsie doopsie. They also really can't do anything with Midari. Like you saw in that clip, she's like masturbating about the thought of playing Russian roulette and dying. That's a character that you know is never ever going to make it into the live action the way that she is in the anime, because she's got a death wish. She's kind of an adrenaline junkie. She doesn't even really care about gambling as much as just the possibility of dying. That's also why she cuts the 2 strings on the finger game at once. Like the idea of self-mutilation gets her off. And and in this show, they turn her just into a stalker and like kind of a weirdo. And I feel bad for the girl that they cast because she's pretty healthy and the girl is supposed to be gross. So, you know, normally you do the thing where you still cast a hot chick and then just call her gross and you sort of accept that. And her eye patch in the show is covering up a missing eye. In the Bet show, she says that her dad took it out and gave her some kind of experimental high-tech eye. So she just wears the eye patch to make it less obvious. In the original, she lost a bet to the president, was $300 million in debt, didn't give a shit. And the president said, if you give me your eye, we'll call it even. And they were going to have an actual surgeon do it. And she went crazy and stabbed her eye and ripped it out. And it's a really interesting character moment in the show too, because the president doesn't really seem to care. And she's like, oh, that wasn't that interesting. And Midari's like, what the fuck is this? That's not fair. I just ripped my eye out. So right away you get a bunch of character established from the council who is all kind of batshit. As opposed to this, where it's kind of just played as like, oh, female stalkers are funny, haha. And then it kind of seems like she's going to win him over eventually, which I'm not going to get into a big rant about this, but some things, gender roles don't really matter. Some things I think they do. And this is one where if the roles were reversed, they wouldn't even consider putting that shit in the show. And also, I don't know if men can be won over the way that women can like that. I just don't think it works the same. They also try to add like this weird love triangle thing between Yumeko, Brian / Ryuto, and Mary. And then Mary's also kind of got a thing going with Riri, the vice president. All unnecessary, all adds nothing to the story. Just a complete filler so they can get their minutes watched up. But hey, if it doesn't have both interracial gay and interracial gay relationships, it's not my Netflix, god damn it. And of course, They make Karari and Rurika not identical twins like they are in the original show. They put poor Rurika, who might be the most attractive girl in the show, in this fucking COVID mask the whole time instead of the cool one that she has for deliberate purpose in the original. The world building in this show is asinine also. Again, in the regular one, they specify like the first sentence of the show that it's a regular school during the day, and then at night they do all the gambling, and that's what actually runs the school behind the scenes. In this one, I guess because they're just stupid, the school seemingly only functions as a gambling den to the point where they have houses because no one my age has read anything but fucking Harry Potter. So there's houses based on each suit of cards, and it never comes into play except for this one shitty ass game. If this show had the balls to just have Dumbledore come down at the end and award a bunch of points to Hart House, I'd give it a recommend just for that. And the last thing I'll say, because this show doesn't deserve this much of anybody's time, is that it kind of does the thing where it wants to seem grounded-ish, but also stylized. So you end up with essentially Cringe. This is a show that if you want to adapt, I think you have to either change it enough to make it unrecognizable or just go all in, over the top, crazy with it and do your best to capture that same energy. And that's how you end up with this cringe fest. And you can tell that these people who wrote this don't even understand gambling because they couldn't make any interesting games. That's why they all have a physical component. And the fact that there were no side bets until Yumeko started them is insane. Anyone who's been around people who like to gamble ever, people will side bet on everything. Like one of the ways that people side bet in day-to-day life is betting what someone else's guess will be about something. So it doesn't matter what the thing actually is. It'd be like if I said to my friend, hey, how much do you think she'll guess that big ass rock weighs? And it doesn't matter if the rock weighs 100 tons or 10 pounds. It matters what we bet that she guesses or he guesses. Like people that gamble like that gamble nonstop. The idea of side bets just becoming a thing is just retarded. So I don't want to keep going. I just wanted to ramble about this shit. No clue why this show ever got made. I don't understand why they said it was inspired by Kakagurui. Half-assed took some of the aesthetics. Didn't even fucking try with the games. And you just end up with a really dumb cringe fest with people that you don't give a shit about. And I feel bad for all the actors and actresses, many of whom I'm sure are trying to get their career jump-started by being in a Netflix show. I'm going to leave it here for this one. If for some godforsaken reason you watch this show, let me know what you think. I try to respond to the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks.